I shouldn't have noticed the way she leaned against her desk, the way her blouse softened with the late afternoon light. But it was impossible not to. Every student had already left. Only I stayed behind, papers spread across the scratched wooden surface between us. She gathered them slowly, one by one, as though prolonging my discomfort was part of her method. "You know why you failed, don't you?" Her voice was low, precise, every syllable a quiet test. I swallowed, forcing a nod. "I didn't finish the paper." Her eyes lifted to mine, steady, searching, too calm. They were the kind of eyes that could make a person confess more than they ever meant to. Silence stretched between us. A ticking clock filled it, louder than it should have been. I couldn't look away. She was older, sure of herself. Mid-40s maybe, but there was something about her that resisted being measured in years. The faint line at her mouth when she smirked, the tired elegance in her posture, it only deepened the pull she had on me. She stood straighter than most people dared to, like gravity worked differently on her. "I don't give second chances easily," she said, sliding her red pen across the desk. Her fingers brushed mine, accidental, I think, though my breath caught before I could stop it. Her skin was cooler than I expected, but it lingered on me like heat. I forced myself to look down at the marked paper, but my focus betrayed me. I saw only her hand. A faint scar traced across her knuckle, and I wondered how many others had noticed it. Probably no one. "You've been distracted," she added, softer now. "In class. In here. Even right now." The words struck harder than her red ink ever could. My throat went dry. I tried to defend myself. "I've been working, But she raised a finger, cutting me off. That silence again. Too long. Too charged. Her perfume lingered in the still air, subtle, like cedar and something faintly sweet. When she moved closer to set another paper down, the scent surrounded me. My chest tightened. "You watch too much," she said finally, almost a whisper. "But you say too little." I froze, not knowing if she meant the class, or her. Her lips pressed together in a line that wasn't quite stern, wasn't quite soft. A contradiction, just like her. The fluorescent light above flickered, humming against the hush of the empty room. I could hear my own pulse, embarrassingly loud in my ears. My hand hovered over the desk, inches from hers. I didn't move it closer, but I didn't take it away either. She noticed. I know she did, because her breath paused, a single, barely there hesitation. Her eyes met mine again, and for a moment I thought I understood something that couldn't be spoken. Something neither of us should have admitted, yet it burned between us all the same. Then, with an almost imperceptible shift, she closed the folder, placed her palm flat on the desk, and leaned forward. "You want to pass?" Her tone had changed. Lower. Rougher at the edges. The door behind us clicked shut. I hadn't touched it. Her hand was still on the desk. Mine still hovered. The space between us narrowed, not quite gone, but not safe either. She didn't move away. And I didn't either. She didn't say anything after the door shut. Just the faintest shift of her shoulders, as though she'd heard it too, the click echoing in the silence like a dare either of us had made. I breathed in shallowly, careful not to let it show. Her hand slid from the desk at last. She gathered another stack of papers, too slowly to be natural, eyes flicking toward me and away again. A pause clung to the air between us, heavy and unspoken. "You're not the first student I've had to fail," she murmured, voice softer now, almost private. "But you might be the first who actually lingers afterward." It wasn't an accusation. Not quite. More like she was trying to name something without touching it. I tried to laugh, but it came out awkward. "Maybe I don't like endings." Her mouth curved, faint, but the smile didn't stay. She looked past me, toward the half-closed blinds that let in slivers of dying light. I realized then how tired she looked, not just in her body but in the small details. The smudge of faded lipstick, the slight slump of her wrist when she held the papers. Loneliness clung to her the way shadows did in the corners of the room, quiet, patient, always waiting. I wanted to ask if she went home to anyone, but the question stayed caught in my throat. Instead, I said, "You're harder on me than the others." Her gaze returned to mine, sharper now. "And you notice?" I nodded once, then looked down quickly, like I'd confessed something I shouldn't have. She stepped closer, close enough that I felt the air shift, her perfume stronger now, not overwhelming, just impossibly near. I pretended to study my notes, but my eyes betrayed me, drawn to the delicate hollow at her collarbone, the faint rise and fall of her breath. When she leaned to place a pen beside my hand, her sleeve brushed my arm. I didn't move. Couldn't. The fabric was soft, warmer than it had any right to be, and the accidental touch made my skin ache with the tension. "You're distracted again," she whispered, so close I felt the warmth of her breath against my ear. I clenched the pen in my hand until it nearly slipped from my grip. If she noticed, she didn't mention it. She pulled back half a step, though her hand lingered on the back of my chair a moment too long, fingers grazing the wood as though weighing whether to touch me or not. The silence returned, but it wasn't the same as before. Now it pulsed, alive with something neither of us dared to name. She turned finally, gathering her things, her tone clipped as if she needed to cut through her own hesitation. "You'll need to work harder if you want another chance." I should have taken that as dismissal. But when she reached past me for her bag, her shoulder brushed mine, deliberate, I think. The smallest spark, and yet enough to make my breath stall. And in that fleeting contact, unspoken but undeniable, something between us bound tighter. The room had grown too quiet, like even the walls were listening. I shifted in my chair, but the air was still heavy with the nearness of her. She moved behind me, sliding a folder onto the cabinet. I felt her presence at my back, close, too close, like heat without contact. Her voice came low, almost at my shoulder. "You know people talk, don't you? About professors. About students." I didn't turn around. "Do they talk about you?" Her pause was sharp, almost a flinch. "They don't need to." I started to answer, but a sudden knock rattled the door. Both of us froze. She straightened instantly, pulling away. I heard her heels click back toward the desk, papers shuffled too fast, as though tidiness could erase the charge in the air. Another knock. Louder this time. "Professor? You still in there?" A man's voice. Another student maybe, casual, unsuspecting. My pulse surged. She cleared her throat, steady but curt. "I'm busy. Later." A beat of silence, then retreating footsteps down the hall. The quiet returned, heavier now, both of us aware of how easily it could all collapse. Her eyes found mine. For a moment, there was no desk, no grades, no rules. Just her gaze, unwavering, pulling me into a place I wasn't sure I could get out of. "You shouldn't stay," she whispered. But she didn't open the door. Instead, she leaned across the desk to collect another stack of papers. Her arm brushed mine, skin against skin this time, no fabric in the way. My breath caught, and hers faltered too, the faintest hitch that told me she'd felt it just as much. I turned, almost without meaning to. She was inches away now, close enough that I could see the faint lines at the corner of her eyes, the subtle tremor at the edge of her lip. She didn't move back. The space between us was too thin. A single breath would close it. "You're—" I started, then stopped. Words failed. Her eyes flicked to my mouth, then back to my eyes, sharp with warning, soft with something else. "Don't." But she didn't sound sure. My hand tightened around the pen I still hadn't let go of, grounding myself, because everything in me leaned forward. "You're afraid of what they'll say," I murmured. Her jaw tensed. "I'm afraid of what I'll do." That silence again, pulsing, dangerous. Her fingers curled against the desk edge, white-knuckled, as if holding herself in place. I wanted to reach for her hand, to steady it, to steady both of us. The clock ticked, too loud, too fast. We didn't kiss. Not yet. But when she finally exhaled, it was against my cheek, warm and trembling. And in that half-breath distance, We were closer than either of us had ever dared. I should have left when she told me to. Every minute I stayed made it harder to pretend this was just about a grade. She stood at the window now, blinds tilted enough for stripes of streetlight to carve across her face. One hand braced on the sill, the other loosely at her side. I could see the tightness in her shoulders, the way she held herself too rigid, as though control was something she wore like armor. "I can't keep doing this," she said finally, her voice so low it was almost to herself. "Doing what?" Her head tilted, not enough to look at me. "Letting you look at me like that." The words lodged in my chest. I hadn't realized how obvious I'd been, every stolen glance, every silence stretched too long. I moved closer, slow, each step louder than it should have been. "And if I can't stop?" That made her turn. Her eyes found mine, unblinking, fierce in a way that scared me and drew me in all at once. "You think this is a game?" she asked, breath sharper now. "No," I whispered. "That's the problem." She shut her eyes, exhaling hard. I thought she'd push me away, but instead her hand lifted, hesitant, trembling, and brushed the side of my face. Just fingertips, tracing lightly, as though testing whether I was really there. It undid me. I caught her wrist gently, holding it against my cheek. Her pulse fluttered fast beneath my thumb. She didn't pull away. "You're too young," she breathed, shaking her head, though her hand stayed where I held it. "They'd never understand. I don't care about them." My voice cracked, raw and too honest. "I care about this. About you." Her lips parted, but no words came. Instead, she let me step closer, so close the faint brush of her hair grazed my chin. My free hand rose almost without thought, tucking a strand of it behind her ear. The softness of it made my chest ache. She leaned in, not fully, just enough that her forehead rested against mine. Her breath mingled with mine, uneven, shaking. "This is wrong," she whispered. "Then why does it feel like the only thing that's right?" Her fingers curled into my shirt, gripping tight. That small act shattered the last barrier between restraint and surrender. I felt the warmth of her body against mine, her heartbeat stuttering quick against my chest. We hovered there, on the precipice, lips an inch apart, gravity pulling us closer, both of us caught in the unbearable weight. Then the hallway outside erupted with footsteps. Voices. Laughter. She stiffened, clinging to me as if torn between hiding and letting go. And in that trembling pause, right before the world could crash back in, she whispered a single word against my mouth. "Don't." The voices outside faded, and the silence left between us was too sharp, like glass underfoot. She released my shirt slowly, fingers dragging as though reluctant, then stepped back. The absence of her touch left me unsteady. Her eyes darted toward the door, then back to me. Something in them had changed, harder now, but not against me. Against herself. "I need to tell you something," she said. My chest tightened. "What?" She hesitated, her lips parting, closing, opening again. Finally. "You weren't the only one I failed this semester. But you're the only one I meant to." The words struck harder than I could have prepared for. "What do you mean?" I asked, almost afraid of the answer. Her hands trembled as she pressed them flat against the desk, knuckles pale. "You distracted me. Every time you walked into the room, She stopped, swallowing hard. "I told myself it was nothing. Just curiosity. But then you kept looking at me like you knew. Like you saw me." I froze, trying to absorb it. The grade, the warnings, the clipped remarks, none of it was just academic. She'd been wrestling with this long before I realized it. "You failed me on purpose," I said quietly. Her silence confirmed it. I stepped closer, too close, until the edge of the desk pressed against her hip. Her breath caught. "That doesn't sound like a mistake," I murmured. Her eyes flickered, guilt, longing, fear, all tangled at once. "It was the only way to push you away. But you didn't push me away." My hand brushed hers on the desk. She flinched but didn't move. Her skin was cold, her pulse quick beneath it. "Because I couldn't," she whispered. The admission cracked through her composure, leaving her raw. I wanted to say something, anything to break the weight of it, but all I could do was stand there, fighting the pull that had become unbearable. She leaned forward a fraction, then stopped herself, shaking her head like she was trying to wake from a dream. "You don't understand what this would cost me," she said. Her voice broke, almost inaudible. "Then let me," I whispered back, my lips inches from hers. Her eyes burned into mine, wide, terrified, alive. She pushed past me suddenly, brushing against my chest, the heat of her body unmistakable even in retreat. She moved toward the door, but her hand hovered on the handle, trembling, unable to turn it. For a long moment she stood there, caught between escape and surrender. The room held its breath with her. Then she let go of the handle, slowly, deliberately. She didn't turn around, but her voice carried, low and unsteady. "Stay." She didn't move after saying it. Just stood at the door, hand still trembling at her side, as though the word itself had taken everything from her. "Stay." I swallowed hard, pulse hammering. My feet carried me toward her before my head could object. Each step closed the distance that had been building for weeks, maybe months. When I stopped, I was close enough to feel the heat of her body radiating through the narrow space left between us. She turned then, slowly, until her eyes met mine. The room seemed to shrink, the air thick with everything we'd never said. Her voice came quiet, frayed at the edges. "If I let this happen, there's no undoing it." I leaned in, not touching her yet, but near enough that her breath mingled with mine. "Then don't undo it." Her lips parted, trembling with hesitation. She looked away, then back, like she couldn't bear either option. Her hand lifted halfway before faltering in the air, uncertain. So I reached, gently, brushing a strand of hair from her face. My fingers lingered at her temple, sliding down to her cheek. She closed her eyes for a second, leaning into the touch before catching herself, as though even her own body betrayed her. "You're too young," she whispered. "Then stop me," I said. My hand still on her face, my voice lower, daring her. "If you really want to." Her eyes opened again, searching mine with a desperation that made my chest ache. "I can't," she breathed. And in that surrender, the last barrier broke. She leaned forward, her forehead pressing against mine. Our lips hovered, not touching yet, but close enough that the space between us pulsed with unbearable gravity. My hand slid to her waist, tentative, and she didn't pull away. Instead, her fingers clutched my shirt, gripping hard, like she needed something to anchor her. The silence was filled with our unsteady breaths, every second stretching too long, too fragile. Then she whispered, almost inaudible, "Tell me I'm not making a mistake." "You're not," I said instantly, though my voice shook with the weight of it. Her mouth hovered against mine, and finally, she closed the last inch. The kiss wasn't polished, wasn't careful. It was messy, urgent, a collision of everything we'd denied. Her hands slid up, curling at the back of my neck, holding me there as though afraid I'd disappear. I pressed closer, every nerve on fire, the taste of her undoing every doubt I'd tried to keep. When we broke apart, she rested her head against my shoulder, breath ragged, fingers still trembling against my skin. For the first time, there were no words left unspoken. No masks. No pretenses. Just the truth of what we'd chosen. She lifted her head, eyes meeting mine, raw, unguarded. And in that silence, in that single look, I understood, whatever came after, we were already past the point of no return. We stayed like that, pressed against each other, breathing in the stillness as if the world outside had fallen away. The hum of the fluorescent light, the faint echo of voices somewhere down the hall, none of it mattered. What mattered was the warmth of her hand still gripping my shirt, the soft weight of her leaning into me, the truth we could no longer pretend away. She drew back just enough to see me, her palms sliding down to rest against my chest. Her eyes were softer now, though rimmed with hesitation. "This isn't how my life was supposed to look," she murmured. I caught her hands before she could pull them away. "Maybe it's not about how it's supposed to look." I hesitated, choosing words carefully. Maybe it's about how it feels. Her lips curved into the smallest, most fragile smile, like she wanted to believe me, even if part of her still fought against it. People will judge, she said, her thumb unconsciously tracing across my hand. The age, the position, everything. They don't get a vote, I whispered. You do. We do. For a long beat, she studied me, eyes flickering over my face as though searching for a reason to step away. But instead, she leaned forward, pressing her forehead to mine once again. The touch was gentle this time, grounding, less fire and more warmth. I've been alone for so long, she confessed quietly. Too long. I thought keeping walls up kept me safe. But all it did was keep me empty. I lifted one hand, brushing my thumb along her cheekbone, slow, careful. Then let me be here. If you'll have me. Her breath trembled, but she nodded. Just once. Enough. The kiss that followed wasn't rushed like before. It was slow, lingering, the kind of kiss that spoke more than words could ever manage. Her hand slipped behind my back, pulling me close, and I felt the weight of her surrender in that embrace, not defeat, but release. When we finally broke apart, she rested her head against my chest. My arms circled around her, holding her tightly, as if we could block out the rest of the world in that moment. The clock ticked. The hallway outside quieted. And in the hush that followed, something between us settled, not perfect, not easy, but real. Her voice came muffled against me. What happens now? I pressed a kiss into her hair, closing my eyes. Now, we stop pretending. She exhaled, a soft, unsteady sound that felt like relief. Her fingers intertwined with mine, locking us together. For the first time all night, I felt her body relax in my arms, as if she'd finally allowed herself to rest. We stayed that way, tangled in silence, not needing to say more. Whatever came next, we would face it, together. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?